Howdy, folks. Happy Tuesday. We're here. We have a lot of things to discuss, a lot of injury news, a trade yesterday, a significant trade. I think to be fair, I think the first significant trade deadline season, the Leaf deal was key for them in terms of, adding players that they needed to add, but I don't think it was a major consequence. But we're going to start with some baseball news and a lot of stuff going on. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, this proposed wackiness for the playoffs is really just stupid. Actually, when I was on Sirius, like Mick Curran asked me, what would be a deal breaker for you as a hockey fan? And I said, if teams chose their own opponent in the playoff. As a fan, I would not want to see that. There's a bunch of reasons, but the biggest reason is, so we always ask players when it gets close to playoff time, who do you want to play? And players always say, doesn't matter. Now, if it really does matter and they do get to pick it, if that team gets eliminated, the favored team, they will get excoriated by their fan base for picking the wrong team. Like, you've just added like an extra layer of controversy for no reason.
Yeah, for the sake of having a show, or basically like having something on the MLB network. Here we're gonna choose the teams. It's like zippity doo dah. Yeah, and as said in the chat here, Trevor Bauer went out on Twitter this morning apparently and destroyed Manfred for the suggestion at this. I'll tell you what,
and I'm glad, because I have never found one player over the 20 years I've been covering sports that has said, yeah, I want to play that team.
Well, I'll tell you something right now. The one thing that maybe the choosing of the team will go by the wayside, but Major League Baseball is, we're talking about 14 teams making the playoffs. We're talking about it being like the NFL, less than the NBA, less than the NHL, but along the lines of the NFL. And I honestly think, and I've said this since the 2012 lockout, that I think in the new CBA, it's going to be 20 teams. We're going to have 32 teams in the league with Seattle coming in. I think there's going to be like a first round, either play-in game type of situation, or, that would be 14. Like say for example, the third and fourth place teams in each division playing a 1-game play-in game. That could be what the NHL does. Remember, that's something they can sell as a completely separate package to a completely separate network, like the Major League Baseball does with TBS.
But you do have to be careful with things like that. You do, because, and we'll get back to baseball on it, but the NHL, all leagues have to be careful about that, because it could, be looked at as a joke, especially if the games are bad. Like, if you look at teams that probably shouldn't have made it, that make it under those guys, or a team that really isn't that good and somehow they win the championship in your league, that you don't want that. Like, now all of a sudden you're really cheapening the regular season, and that's one thing where both the NHL and the MLB have good regular seasons. You should not cheapen them.
The Philadelphia Eagles making the playoffs in football at 8-8. You can make an argument that it's already happening, and they hadn't.
But you don't want the others to do that just because they did.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, and the point apparently what they're trying to avoid here is, and we know this because we watch baseball and follow baseball, that 2/3 of the league are basically tanking. They're basically, they're not competitive. That by June the 1st, if they're not in the race, they're pretty much out of it. The races last year were terrible.
I'll include the Red Sox now in that group.
Yeah, well, yeah. You'd have, because they've basically
they said yesterday
they've admitted it, and they did name Renicky as the interim manager.
Right? Because there's a reason. So, having just been in Boston, for one thing, they tried to gloss over how trading Mookie Betts is better for the competitive balance and for their team going forward. And it's like, you lost your best player. That is not going to help you with your competitive balance. If you want to say it saves us money and we're going to pocket it, I would appreciate the honesty, but they didn't do that. They went the other route.
They're not going to do that.
They went the other route. And so they're trying to tell their fans they're competitive. And I'm sure they're not going to sell out all their home games. Their fans are annoyed. I spoke to a bunch that were annoyed. And now the Renicky thing, the reason why they won't name him the manager is because MLB hasn't come down with, the punishment, what they're going to do to Cora beyond what they did. And Renicky could be swept right up in it.
He could, but it also could be that Cora is going to be brought back if he's suspended for a year. Right. Renicky the interim, and then Cora comes back. So I mean, they're covering all their bases.
But Renicky is probably not. I don't know if he's down in spring training right now. Pitchers and catchers reported today.
I think he is. Actually.
He is? Okay, because on one of the stations, I think it was like 98.5, the Sports Hub. They had something funny. They said, "Remember when Roger Clemens was in spring training with headphones and he was ignoring his manager, Butch Hobson?" And he said, I could imagine the Red Sox doing that today. And they probably did until the Renicky thing was named, unless they did it at the beginning of the morning. We don't know because we don't know when it broke in their camp. But it's just, that's a bad situation. Like they basically, all the players went to training camp yesterday not knowing who their manager was.
Well, they could bring in Grady Little. Okay, now couple.
They could bring in Stump Merrill too. I don't think you should go that route.
There you go. A couple other quick things here. One, AJ Hinch comes out a couple days ago in an interview with Tom Verducci and completely avoids the question of did the Astros use buzzers. He essentially said Major League Baseball has investigated this thoroughly and they found no evidence of it. That's not an answer. So he's being evasive, and that immediately brings to mind that this is sort of the legal argument. But the thing is here, if Manfred, there's precedence to it. Now, just be brief on this. Manfred ruled on the Astros, is going to rule on the Red Sox, and his claim is after that he will have cleaned up the whole situation. This is like Kennesaw Mountain Landis back in the early 20s when he suspended and banned the 8 Black Sox for gambling, and then a couple years later, Ty Cobb and Tris Speaker, 2 future Hall of Famers, were implicated in a gambling scandal. And oh my God, it couldn't have been that, the game was cleaned up by Kennesaw Mountain Landis. So of course there's not going to be more gambling. Well, there was more gambling, but this is the thing. Manfred, if he's trying to cover up part of this to limit the extent of how wide ranging this is, he's going to get rolled up in this crap.
Well, I'm disappointed in Verducci because he was a very good reporter for Newsday back in the day. Then he went to like SI. Now he's on MLB Network. And if you're not allowed to ask those questions on MLB Network and you let him skate on that.
Oh, he asked the question. Hinch just didn't answer it.
No, but he probably didn't follow up with the right follow-up. Right. It sounds like he didn't. It sounds like he let him say the answer he prepared himself for and moved on. And that, as a reporter, that you should have something else ready when you know that he is going to try and weasel out of it.
Yeah.
And sounds like he didn't, right? Sounds like he didn't really.
Yeah, and he was interviewed on New York on the Michael Kay show this yesterday, and essentially he said he believed Hinch in the sense that Hinch didn't know, and I find that hard.
And that's what I'm saying. This is now where I doubt Verducci now as a reporter.
Now, the other thing, and
I think you let him off too easy, don't you? And Michael probably should have said so.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing, and this has implications going forward potentially for hockey. It already almost happened in hockey. We know that it happened with the Sabres this year when they broadcast from Buffalo the games that were in Sweden against Tampa Bay. Apparently the San Francisco Giants, and the reason that they're doing this is for health reasons of one of their broadcasters, Mike Kruko, who has, I guess, bad knees and can't get up some of these older stadiums with the stairs. They don't have elevators to get up to the press box. He is going to broadcast from home for, I think, 1/4 of the game of the road games. Now, the reason I bring this up is because of the Sabre thing I just mentioned, and a couple years ago when Lou Lamoriello banned the broadcast team of Jim Ralph and Joe Bowen from the Leafs official plane. He wanting a separate thing between team and media. Rogers was considering doing the broadcasts from Rogers Studios in Toronto with the road, basically them watching the game on the monitor. Then they ended up, booking separate flights for them, and that it continued. But in a league right now where we have certain owners in certain southern climes who are, who eliminated broadcasters, I can't limit the possibility that in a couple of years it's going to start happening where some of their broadcasters aren't going to go on the road.
Yeah, you can envision that. But we have to remember that in the old days, in the 50s in Major League Baseball, they didn't. And when they tried to recreate it, they would read it off a teletype, and they would get the game that way, and there'd be that one guy who would smash the two pieces of wood together and fake a hit.
No. If you watch the movie,
it would be like a fake broadcast.
If you watch the movie, actually, the thing is, I think Ronald Reagan, as a young radio guy in the 30s, did that like in Chicago. But if you watch the movie 8 Men Out, they're in some big hall and they're reading off the ticker tape the play-by-play of the game. Yeah. So it would. I mean, the only difference would be
they had video.
They have video, but you're not going to be able to pick up. You're only going to be able to see what the camera is showing. It's not. Right. You're not going to be able to see everything, and you're not going to be able to talk to people. So I think it's terrible, but it may be the future. We'll have Eck joining us in a few minutes. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2020.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, we'll start with the trade. Last night popped up, I think around 8:15, a significant deal between the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Bill Guerin, who was a former assistant of Jim Rutherford in Pittsburgh, I'm sure that was probably a factor here in terms of negotiations and his knowledge of Pittsburgh's prospects system. The deal was Jason Zucker, whose name has been floated for a couple years. Yeah. Jason Zucker going to the Penguins for Alex Galchenyuk, who most people think was the salary dump in this deal, which I would.
I mean, it's a partial, but he still has talent.
He still has talent, but he's a UFA, and the question is, if he can show Minnesota that he's got something to prove,
then they might be interested in him.
And they might be interested, and if not, if he shows what he's shown in Pittsburgh, and
then it'll be that.
Then he's just going to walk away and be a free agent, and somebody will take a 1-year stab at him for like $800,000 because he's not going to make any money based on the way he's playing. But Galchenyuk, a lottery protected 2020 first round pick, meaning if the Penguins miss the playoffs, the pick moves to 2021, and defensive prospect Kalen Addison. What do you think of this deal, Russ?
Well, Addison is a guy that I really liked in his draft year, but he was also kind of like spongy. The same way people said like Drew Doughty was spongy. Now, I'm not going to say Addison's Drew Doughty because he's not. But he gets drafted. They get him in a prime position. I want to say they picked him up in the second round. The next year, he's working with the Penguins staff. He changes his diet because I remember speaking to him, and all of a sudden he starts looking a lot better, a lot more fit. And now we're 2 years down the line, and he's more than a point a game as a defenseman. He's got double-digit goals, and he is a legit second-line pairing potential NHL defenseman. So this is a good pickup for Minnesota. It does leave the door open now that if they want to trade Dumba, they could probably weather the storm for when they're good again, and Addison maybe a couple of years will be there. Right. So that's one thing. The Galchenyuk thing is like basically guarantees that, hey, I'm only 5 points out, but if I don't trade these assets and we don't make the playoffs, then I'm going to get excoriated in my first year as GM because I sort of let that window close. So he took advantage of the window. And what if Galchenyuk caught fire and the Wild make the playoffs? Then it's the best case scenario. And if they don't make the playoffs, then you say Guerin did a good job of, getting ahead of it and getting the best possible deal. So I think this is a very big plus for Bill Guerin as the new GM of the Minnesota Wild to sort of put his stamp on things. And now with the players, this is the other brilliant part of it. There's still a couple weeks left. If the players don't give their all and get close to the playoffs, he might identify a few more to trade. And that's what the players should be worried about.
Right.
So that's a good move because the other night when the Wild lost, Devin Dubnyk played an amazing game. Like, they only lost 3-2.
Yeah.
Against the Avs. That was a good game against the Avs. They had 5 or 6 great scoring chances that Francouz extinguished in the third period.
See, I mean, I think this is tantamount to them saying we're selling, or
no, but it isn't.
I know they're close.
It's both, because I'm telling you, if you watch that game against Colorado, they gave Colorado everything they could handle.
Right. I get that, but I'm just saying it's like right now, they're 4 points out of a wild card spot, and they traded one of their better scorers. Now,
but again, I think you're taking the too harsh approach.
Well, I'm not saying that they should stop trying. I'm just saying it's a reality. You've traded one of your best scorers. This is a team that has had trouble scoring, and they traded one of their better scorers. I mean, I'm looking at it realistically from Guerin's point of view.
But I'm also looking at it like, with the change of scenery, if all of a sudden Galchenyuk were to play good again like he did in Montreal, you wouldn't even miss Jason Zucker.
But that's not likely. I mean,
but there's a chance. That's my point.
It could happen. But, like Victor Rask, when he got traded from Carolina to Minnesota, it didn't change.
But I think Galchenyuk's a lot higher.
Right. He's got a higher level of possibility. I look at this situation, and from the Minnesota point of view, I think they're selling now. I don't think they're dumping. I don't think they're
they're not dumping.
I think if they can make deals, like I heard Jonas Brodin's name being floated out there today, Dumba's name obviously has been out there for a couple weeks. They'll trade these guys, but they'll expect to get the package back that they got from Pittsburgh, which is a good package. You got, a 19-year-old defenseman who played really well at the World Juniors, and more than likely, if they want to push, he could be on their blue line next year. If they want to wait another year, take the more conservative course of action, then 2021. But he's an NHL prospect.
Yeah.
But I look at it from the Pittsburgh point of view, and got to factor in a few things here. Pittsburgh replaced Gensel. Gensel was going to be out for at least the rest of the regular season. There has been some talk about him maybe coming back for the playoffs, but they had the cap room of Gensel's contract being put on LTIR. But since they moved Galchenyuk, and the cap hits are basically a wash between Zucker and Galchenyuk, they still have a move to make if they need to. And the news came out today that John Marino is going to be out for 3 to 6 weeks after having some sort of facial fracture surgery. So Rutherford may not be done. And
he's probably not done. And certainly Zucker can replace some goals that Gensel was giving him, and he's a very good clutch goal scorer. So in that regard, it does make you miss Gensel less. There is only a 2-3 year window with this Pittsburgh team, and so they're trying to maximize it.
And Zucker has 3 years left. And this is a hockey deal in a sense. Yeah. Because Zucker's got 3 years. They gave up value, but they got 3 years of Zucker at $5.5 million.
Yeah, it's a known commodity and a known cap hit, and that's good.
Now, what this might mean in the offseason, because if they, right now they can afford everything because of LTIR and everything else. But if you look at the depth chart for the Penguins, this might mean them trading a Patrick Hornquist. Because
it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Schultz's $5.5 million contract is dropping off. They re-signed Pettersson. Marino is another year on his ELC, so they're gonna have to move things around. And you got to remember also the goaltending situation. Murray's contract is up, and so is Tristan Jarry. So we're talking, a lot of pieces to move around the board. So I think this is a good deal for Pittsburgh. I think, as it was said yesterday when the trade was reported, they're all in. There's
no question. I mean, now, when you look at them, they're almost as good as the Capitals. So there's no question they have a chance at winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and Schultz apparently is close to being back. I haven't heard anything on Dumoulin, but Pittsburgh is in this mix, and really it's a smart thing. I know that there was some commentary about, the Penguins have like the second or third worst prospect pool in the NHL, and now they've traded their top prospect. Well, you've got Crosby and you've got Malkin at age 31, 32 years old. You got to go for it now, because unless they win the lottery in a couple of years, this is their opportunity. This is their last opportunity with this core group to win. So I think.
Well, I'm gonna speak to Scott Wheeler here and say that Kalen Addison is not their top prospect. That's always a matter of opinion, but when you write about that definitively, as if you definitely traded your top prospect, you are now making everybody take the leap of faith that the guy that you have identified really is their top prospect. And I'm telling you, it's arguable, because Philip Hallander is a center and he's terrific, and he's playing in a men's league in Sweden. So that's something where you could say, all right, you know what? I'm not sure about that. And again, out of sight, out of mind, maybe because Addison's a Canadian, they decided to dub him the top prospect. So are they deep, deep? No. But I don't think they traded their top prospect, and they do have other prospects. And to be honest, they've made good signings. Like, Zach Ashton Reese, they got Marino for a 6th-round pick or something. Yeah. I mean, if they're able to do things like that and fortify their lineup, they can have a little bit of a weak system and still do well.
Now, Ak, I want to get your thoughts on this trade from the Minnesota perspective, because I didn't, I went out on a limb as I usually do, and I said I think Minnesota's dumping. Now, I don't think they're dumping in terms of like getting rid of everybody for whatever they can get, but I think Guerin, by making this deal, and Zucker's been on the market for a couple years, there will be names out there like Dumba, like Brodin, maybe, that they will trade. But if they can get a package commensurate to what the Penguins gave up for Zucker, I think they'll make this move, because
I think they're right. I think you're right about that, Mike. I have talked to some people on both sides today, Minnesota and Pittsburgh, and this was definitely originated by the Pittsburgh Penguins, not the Wild. And the Wild were quick to say that. I think partially to tell their fans, we are only like 3 points out of a playoff spot right now, so we're not like in buy and sell mode here. However, this is a hell of a deal. Like, when the Penguins come to you and offer this up to you, as much as I like Zucker and I'm a big Zucker fan, and I know they're a big Zucker fan, and but you can ask yourself this, like, would the Rangers make this deal for Kreider? And I would say yes.
I think we would too.
Would the Senators make this deal for Peugeot? I'd say yes. I mean, you're looking at, like, when you look at the big guys that are out there right now, they got a lot.
Yeah,
they got a whole lot, and they got and for a player that has shown incredible, they like, and has shown an ability to do something big, but at the same time hasn't fully developed into something that
Yeah, and what I did mention, and this is why I said it wasn't a dumping. Best case scenario is if Galchenyuk, if this sparks him and he plays well, you really don't miss Zucker in the lineup, and you still have the same chance you did before the trade to actually make the playoffs. But if you don't make the playoffs, then they might trade someone like Dumba, because Addison's close to the NHL.
Yeah.
So I think Guerin just was very good about saying, you know what, we're sort of in it, but I don't want to have an opportunity pass up. So let me be proactive here and do it, because I got to put my stamp on the team.
And good, Mike. But I got one other thought on this too. For more, go ahead. So to me, the thing you also remember that Rutherford and Guerin are buddies. You're not talking about. Guerin played for Rutherford. You're talking about. Rutherford doesn't want to go in there and screw Guerin.
No,
he doesn't want. He wants Guerin to be a successful GM in every possible way. That's he really does. He's that kind of guy. He's just. And I think that he just said, listen, and I think Guerin trusts him. If this deal came from somebody else, it may have made it harder for Bill Guerin to make. But I think Guerin trusts Rutherford, and I think he should. And I think what you're seeing here is, the obviousness of in the Metro Division, or even in the Eastern Conference, almost everyone is 3 points from the top and 5 points from being out of the playoffs. Like everybody is in the same boat. And what you're seeing here really clearly to me is the Penguins are saying, well, we can do this. This puts us over the top. And we happen to have Malkin, who's having his best year ever. Like people aren't realizing that Malkin's scoring at a higher pace right now than he's ever scored at.
Yep.
Crosby coming back, solid goaltending, a defense that is still, and they're still in they're in on Brendan Dillon. And I wrote this today that they are very much in on Brendan Dillon, because they did this trade, in a way that they could still make another move. And which Kevin brought up last week, very, very likely they would make two moves. I think this might pull them out of the Kovalchuk situation, but I think what this does with them is it puts them into very much in the Brendan Dillon, Vatanen type thing.
Well, I think two things here. I think one, that Minnesota was okay with doing this move because they have Kaprizov coming. Kaprizov will probably be there next year, and they think they have somebody who can replace Zucker as a scoring winger. That's one thing. The other thing is, I actually think this hurts the leverage for the Rangers with Kreider, the Sens with Pajot, the Kings with Toffoli, because Pittsburgh gave up a number one and a top prospect for a guy who has 3 years left on his contract. We're talking about rentals. These teams are not going to be willing to give up for maybe for Kreider, because
I think for Kreider they still will, because he is an impact guy.
But the other guys, I think it's going to hurt.
And that's why these trades. That's why the Kreider and these guys they would make those trades because of that. I mean, if you put say Kreider with 3 years and Zucker with 3 years.
Kreider's better.
Yeah, Kreider's better. But, with Kreider as an expiring contract, sure, they do this trade. And I was told that this is about the kind of deal that the Rangers wanted for Kreider when they talked to the Penguins. And the Penguins making this move shows you a lot, because despite what everybody's been saying and what everybody's been thinking, that, the Penguins and the Rangers wouldn't deal with Kreider, they were very much talking about it. And I'm talking to my Penguins guys.
I'll give you one more advantage that the Wild have in this deal, and that is Guerin could take Galchenyuk aside and say, "Hey, listen, I've been in your shoes.
Yep,
you have a lot of talent. I have a lot of talent. This is how I got my career back on track." And maybe he gets his career back on track. If he does that, then this is an unbelievable trade.
It's a USA Hockey player type thing too. There's a huge amount of respect that USA Hockey players have for Billy Guerin. They will listen to him. Like, Guerin is one of those, he's one of those pinnacle pillars of USA Hockey.
Yeah,
that all the USA Hockey guys totally admire. They will listen to him, and also they're bringing him in here to replace Zucker, supposedly, who's a winger. And so for Guerin to be specifically brought in as a winger, and then everywhere he's gone, it's been oh, can you play center?
He always gets moved to the wing, and he still plays terrible. I think it's an opportunity for him, and that he can prove in the next couple of weeks that he's turned over a new page. It's also an opportunity for Guerin that, since he can retain salary on Galchenyuk, he could flip him as a rental and get more return for him if they're out of it. So, I mean, I don't
think so. There's not a whole lot of this is a very sneaky Rutherford move in getting Galchenyuk put into this deal in a lot of ways. If you look at it from the Penguins,
if Galchenyuk scores 4 or 5 goals in the next 2 weeks,
it's a worthwhile risk, and that's why it was done. But there's not a lot of without these other pieces, Galchenyuk can't just be moved. That's what I think they realized that Galchenyuk had to be part of something else. Yeah, somebody's we got to take Galchenyuk, but he could possibly succeed here too. So we'll take him. If Galchenyuk is your trade deadline acquisition,
right,
you're in trouble. That no one was going to do that.
Well, what I'm saying is the move of Galchenyuk allowed Pittsburgh to make another move, because they have the LTIR money for Gensel. They would have used that up if they had just acquired Zucker for the first and Addison. Now that they moved Galchenyuk, didn't retain anything, they can make the move for the defenseman. And Minnesota, if they want to keep him for the rest of the year and he plays well, fine. And if in the next couple of weeks they say, well, he's not playing very well, so we're not going to re-sign him anyway, they could retain salary and flip him. So there's
make no mistake about it. Minnesota, in their head, they're still a playoff team.
Well,
when you talk to people out there, they are there. We are 100% going for it in the playoffs. We did not make this move, and they've seen Zucker.
I watched the game against the Avs, and they could have easily tied and won that game.
Yeah,
they played maybe one of his best games of the year, and Francouz had to stop some amazing shots in the third period just to win that game 3-2. So they're playing hard still.
Okay. They're playing hard. They're a very good team, and they're a much better team than I think people thought they were. Yeah. And Zucker has been a part of that to a degree, but he hasn't been the driving force of that at all. And what I like about Zucker in Pittsburgh is, I was always a big Zucker fan from, way back. And I've mentioned before, but, he was actually what turned me on to watching the World Juniors, as a hockey fan, because he would score these huge goals, and Drury used to do the same thing, back in the day, but they remind me of each other. They Zucker would just score these enormous goals and be such a, and he's got that clutch side of him, and he's never been in the right situation in Minnesota to show that clutch side, where in Pittsburgh he will be. Like there will be.
Hold on. He has showed it. He has a lot of game-winning goals.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about like a Game 7 playoff series. Like, you know what I mean? Like in Pittsburgh, there will be an overtime where Zucker scores a huge goal for them.
Yeah.
You know that'll happen. You know,
yeah,
I'm not saying that because that's what he did. I mean, his goals were huge goals for World Juniors. Like he would score, and he wasn't like a top scorer on the team, but when it came down to it, he would get the goals. You know, he would make those plays happen. A lot like Drury in a lot of ways, right? So to me, Drury was for the U.S. So I think that's what I like about this for Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh, you know, this is the kind of if they win 1 or 2 playoff games because of this, that could win them a Stanley Cup. I mean, Pittsburgh might just need like the 1 or 2 playoff games that they win because the Zucker scores a goal to win a Stanley Cup, and they know that. So that's what they're doing here.
And now we switch to the infirmary section of the.
My gosh, what is going on? It's like the bloody Valentine's Day.
One of them we knew was coming.
Well, okay, let's start with the biggest impact one, because I'll tell you right now, in listening to the press conference with Ken Holland, the Edmonton media were apoplectic. It was like panic mode when it came to Connor McDavid. Now, McDavid on Saturday, he was held out. I think in the third period, there was a bruise above his knee. They had it, I guess they had it medically evaluated. It was a quad injury. They don't believe, Holland indicated it wasn't serious, but he's going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah. And I'm telling you right now, Eck, 2 to 3 weeks without McDavid is a death blow for this team, because they are on the precipice of falling out of the playoffs. And if you miss, I mean, hey, if Draisaitl and Nugent Hopkins can pick up the slack for McDavid,
and they could make a move too. I mean, this is where they could get a Kreider, they could get a Peugeot. They're trying.
Okay, hold on.
They don't have any cap room.
It's not even that. It's not even that. Eck, all I would do is call up Tyler Benson and see how these guys play for 2 weeks. Because if they fall out of it before McDavid comes back, there is no way I'm trading future assets to prop up a lousy team.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right about that.
I go out in the first round.
I don't disagree with that, but I just think that them falling out of it is a little bit soon for Mike to put the death knell on them.
I'm not saying they're going to fall 10 points behind it, although Flamester in the chat just indicated that James Neal is out with a high ankle.
He is. He's out. He got a high ankle sprain, I heard. So
I mean, this could really kill their season, Eck. It could.
Yeah, I mean, the James Neal injury, I mean, the combination of those two is hard for sure, but obviously, McDavid's the best player in the world. I mean, what can you say? Whenever you miss him for a time, but that doesn't mean we're talking about I got to look at their schedule over the next couple of weeks to say I'm going to check that out as well.
He's basically they're saying he's going to be out until after the deadline, and all I'm saying is the reason I'm saying it. I'm not saying it with any kind of like lust in my voice or any kind of hyperbole.
I'm a little lusty.
The reason I'm saying
sound that way, but okay.
I'm not going to deny that, Mike.
This team is based on 2 players, McDavid and Draisaitl. And when you knock out one of the 2 legs, you have nothing to stand on. That's what I'm saying.
It's been based on more than that lately. I mean, it has. And yeah, it was that way in the beginning of the year when they were scoring at a 250-point pace for sure.
Well, you didn't get a chance to comment on the 7 goals that the great goalie gave up, Koskinen.
Oh yeah, well, hey, that happens. The other night, I mean, the Flyers put in 7. The Flyers put in 7 on the Caps in Washington on Saturday night. I thought that might happen. I mean, this kind of stuff is bound to happen. But I'm not saying Koskinen is the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I'm just saying that he is definitely better than people give him credit for.
Okay, so hold on.
I'm sorry.
McDavid will miss 7 to 8 games.
Yes.
7 to 8 games. Okay,
that's a lot of games.
That's a lot of games. Who are those 7 games? Let's look.
All right, I'll tell you.
Thank you, Russ, because I'm going to prove Mike wrong while you look that up.
Eastern Conference, the next 3 games. I think it's Florida, Tampa, and one other.
No, I got the games here. It's
okay.
Blackhawks.
Where is that, home or away?
Blackhawks is a home game.
Okay.
They're away at Tampa. They're away at Florida. Okay. They're away at Carolina. Okay. Then they're home against the Bruins. Home against the Wild, away against the Kings, away against the Ducks, home against the Knights is the 26th, but he might be back by then, might not. Who knows?
Yeah, all right. So we're looking at.
I'd say realistically, they go 500. They say 4-4 in those.
500. They're fine, Mike. We've seen you have to in order to fall out or get back in.
Just going 500.
I believe they're 1 point out of falling out of the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know, but
500.
But then, I mean, they're what? Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Russ.
No, I was just gonna say, even going 500, they could fall out of it like temporarily.
That's my
Oh, they could, but it's in the NHL right now. I mean, look at what Columbus has done. Like they're 19-3-3 or whatever, and they're still.
Columbus has a much better goalie though.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, but you see, no. What my point of that is, when you go on these big streaks, this point of the season in the NHL, it's amazing how little ground you gain or lose. It's just like the Blue Jackets at 19-3-3 should be atop the division. Like that's like there's no
right. It does become a math quiz. I get it, but when you're only 1 point in and you have to go on the road, that road part could kill them.
Yes, let's right now the line of demarcation between being in the mix and being out of the mix is right now. Edmonton is at 64 points, and Minnesota and Chicago are at 58.
That's a 6-point lead.
That's a 6-point lead now, but the team that's out of it right now is 1 point behind Edmonton in Arizona. I'm telling you right now, when McDavid comes back, if they're 4 points out of the wild card, they're fortunate. And that's not a good place to be.
And then if they are 4 points out,
that would be a 10-point swing, right, Mike? You're saying in 7 games.
Well, they don't have McDavid and Neal.
We have never. I mean, you don't see 10-point. You didn't. You saw like a 10-point swing for the Blue Jackets playing 19-3-3 hockey.
Right, but look who's in the Metro division.
Right.
I mean, the Metro.
I granted that's for sure true. But it's harder to fall out. It's way harder because they're going to lose some games that they're going to get an overtime point here and there. There's going to be things that's just going to happen. They're not going to lose all these points.
In the Metro, you've got Pittsburgh and Washington on Mount Olympus. And then the Islanders a little further down, and then everybody else. In this division, everybody's compacted. It's the first place in the Pacific, and out of the playoffs is 4 points.
I'm going to go very simple here, Eck, and I know I'm not a math guy. With Connor McDavid and Neal, they're only a +3 differential. What do you think their differential is going to be without them?
Oh yeah, their differential is going to suffer for sure.
They're lucky in the respect that they're playing they're playing Chicago, who can't keep the puck out of the net unless Robin Leonard stands in his head.
Chicago plays Edmonton well all the time.
And they play the Kings and the Ducks, so their schedule is favorable. But I'm just saying right now, if 500 is a win for them if in the next 8 games. And
if they stay 500, they will be, I guarantee you, right about where they are right now in the standings.
It won't be easy. They will not be where they are in the standings right now.
Who's gonna like have
Arizona will move ahead of them.
And if
Arizona's they lost their goalie, but right? Ron's out for how long now?
He only missed.
Yeah, he's day to day again.
Day to day. It's not like week to week.
All right, but they've got other injuries there going on there.
And Nashville is 5 points behind them. So could Nashville catch up to them?
Yeah, I mean Nashville's playing really good hockey right now. But even with playing really good hockey for Nashville right now, they were playing so bad before they're 5-5 in their last 10. So I mean, the bottom line is Edmonton 6-3-1. Everybody look at Vancouver in their last 10, 6-3-1, and they've actually struggled the last couple games.
Edmonton is not making the playoffs. Period.
Yep.
Edmonton is not making the playoffs.
Yep, I agree. Okay,
oh, man,
sticking with the West.
I'm surprised you didn't go to your next easy target, Mike. Go ahead.
No, we'll get there. Because I want to stay linear here. I'll move east. I'll swing east in a few minutes. But Nazem Kadri, Jared Bednar came out this morning and said Nazem Kadri will be out weeks. It said LBI, so it sounds like a high ankle sprain. That could have an effect on the deadline in the sense that Colorado has a lot of cap space. They were arguably going to be looking for forward help, maybe defense help. They had they could go any direction, but I think now Kadri being out for 4 to 6 weeks or something like that will make them go for a top 6 forward.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they were going to anyway. I don't think, and because they have all the cap space in the world. They've got like $30 million in cap space or something like that, some crazy number like that.
Yeah, they'll go after Kreider now for sure, and they'll probably. And this is where the Rangers could get more for Kreider.
Yeah, this is where the Rangers. I mean, all these injuries definitely don't hurt, for the Rangers right now. Like, I mean, and the amount of injuries are just insane. I mean, Martinez is another one, by the way, to look out for with the Penguins. Like, he's a guy that.
And he's got a year left. He's got a year left.
He's got a year left. I've watched him a lot this year because I've been trying because I've been there's obviously I watched the team a lot because there's so many trade possibilities.
Yeah.
And I don't see it in Martinez. Like,
no, I don't either. I've seen like 4 or 5 of their games.
Yeah, but he's coming off a serious injury. So
yeah, but that's more. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's a shame for him. But but the bottom line is, I don't see it.
That's the reason why teams might be willing to take a chance on him, because there is that other year. Maybe they don't get everything out of him right now, but
I'd rather take a chance on him if there was another year. Like, let's be honest.
Let's also take a moment and reflect on the fact that Jeff Carter's having the worst year of his career and refuses to be traded.
Yeah, there's that too, right?
That is not helping his teammates out.
I mean, I think Athanasiou is the name to look for in Colorado, because it just makes a lot of, like, his skill, his speed level. He could be really, really good if you put him with somebody like, he's never played with anybody with McKinnon's speed or anything like that.
And he could fill in at center, even though Kevin.
Yeah, and he's had a bad year, so he's out there. I think he's gettable.
But he could fill in at center until Kadri comes back, and then
it might not be a first round draft pick to get him.
Probably not, but based on the year that he's having now, moving to the East, Shea Weber.
There's a theme here, Mike.
Yeah, moving to the East.
Edmonton, Kadri, Shea Weber.
Shea Weber, the injury is more extensive than expected. It sounds like he's going to be out long term. Plus, the Canadians lose with a minute left in regulation to Arizona last night on a Jacob Chikrin goal.
Yeah,
give me a shovel. Yeah, they're done.
That was very bad acting, Mike.
Okay. I'm not Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay, no, that's all right. I just was making sure. Okay.
No, but I will say this. So at the Bean Pot, Jean Francois was there covering Jordan Harris, who plays for Northeastern. He's a defenseman. He's really good defenseman for the Canadians. Yep. That's where the Canadians are at. He told me, Eck, that he's interviewed Paling recently and another prospect recently, and that's what he is now writing for his fan base in the biggest French newspaper in that country, because that's where it's at for the Canadians, and he knows it. Yeah, and that's smart. Now, we'll say for the Canadians' fans' sake, hey, Jordan Harris won the Bean Pot yesterday. Yeah, it is worthwhile watching them and some of their prospects, because they do have some really good ones. So that is the silver lining here for the Canadians.
Very true. Give me 1 second, guys.
Okay, basically right now, basically right now, Mark Bergevin, and I understand why, because he's keeping the Wolves at bay. You've got a media and a fan base that are voracious, that they want the Canadians to win the Stanley Cup every year, even though they're not a extremely deep and talented team. Weber is still in his mid-30s, is still a great defenseman. So the loss of him as a leader, as a guy who can log 25 minutes, it's a big loss. But this is a team that needed everything to go right. Everything went right last year, and they missed the playoffs by a point. Tatar had a great year. Domi had a year nobody could expect. It didn't happen this year. Drouin missed half a season. Kotkaniemi basically took a step backwards. Price has been up and down. Everything has gone wrong with this team.
And yet they're almost still in the playoffs.
Oh, stop it.
Where are they? What are they? 3 points out?
They're 5 points out. They've played
5 points out now. They were 3 points out a couple days ago.
The most games in the NHL, 58.
Yeah.
So
everything has gone wrong, and they're out.
They're not in it.
They're in it. I mean, it's like you can't sit there and say they're not in it. They're not 100 games out. They're not 100 points out. I mean, it's like
they're not. Honestly, I'll say this: if Mark Bergevin at this point decides I'm going to keep Kovalchuk because we're in the race, Jeff Molson should fire him immediately.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that. Oh man, I think they are looking to pick up guys. They're looking to.
What they're looking to pick up are guys who are locked up under contract.
No, they've talked to New Jersey about that now. I mean, that's like.
I see. That's just idiotic.
Okay, I have something that's more astounding than this. Than Eck thinking that the Canadians are in the playoffs. So last night, for whatever reason, the gravitational pull of the Earth was such that you could stand a broom on its own, and people were taking pictures of it. And we had a few beers in the bar, and I'm like, "Is this really a thing?" And we were
vernal equinox, where you can stand an egg on.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. And
wait, whoa.
they took a broom from behind the bar, and this is unfortunately in this picture, like it's not leaning against the bar. It's actually against the table. It's like 6 to 8 inches away. That broom stood on its own because of the way it only happens one day a year, and it happened last night, and people were taking pictures of it, and it's real because we had it happen. We tested out the theory, and it was true.
Was Mary Poppins in the building?
No, but it's an amazing thing. The broom stood on its own. It was just a regular, like cedar broom. That's all it was. It wasn't like a big, thick broom or anything.
All right, hold on.
Here's how much of an opportunity the Canadians have.
I don't know. I want to. You guys, as with Edmonton, as with Montreal, as with the broom, you guys are wrong again. Because here, I just didn't take long. Let me figure this out.
Flip a coin.
You got it right here.
Montreal's got about as much a chance of making the playoffs as a coin flip.
NASA
edge.
NASA says the viral broom challenge is based on a hoax. Basic physics works every day of the year.
Damn it!
That's from NASA.
I had a few beers in me, so what are you gonna do?
No, I mean I love it. That's an awesome thing. I wouldn't destroy you guys if you weren't such jerks about Edmonton and Montreal.
We're not jerks. We're just realistic. You're maybe like Never Land.
Now, I'm reporting this because with genuine sorrow, because I love this guy as a player. I think every team would love to have him as a defenseman. But the report came out from Aaron Portzline about an hour ago that Seth Jones had ankle surgery and is out 8 to 10 weeks. So he's out the rest of the regular season. And that's
terrible. I mean, it's like he's their best player, I think.
I'll give them credit. They got a point out of playing against Tampa. They lost 2-1. I mean, the way they play a 1-0. They play straight on.
I know they do, and they play it with a really good goalie right now. So it's like
he's the hottest goalie in the league right now.
Yeah, if you play that style with a goalie who's the highest goalie in the league, you're going to get enough points to keep yourself in this thing. I mean, I
think Columbus will keep themselves in it, and they also could pick up players. They have plenty of space.
They've got tons of space, and their next game is against the Sabres. I mean, they've got
See, but this is the thing. They have tons of space, and that is a benefit because teams will probably want to trade players that have significant cap hits to clear space for other moves. They don't have draft picks, so they're going to have to take salary dumps and turn them into players that can contribute. That's difficult. It's not impossible, but it might work for them. But they're going to be sort of like the dumping ground for like teams that are like if Alex Galchenyuk had not been moved to Minnesota, Galchenyuk to Columbus would have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, now this is a case where I don't think the team will fall out of it, but I'm more than happy to give back the floor so he can explain how the Blackhawks will make the playoffs. I'd like to do that right now.
I don't think the Blackhawks are going to make the playoffs. But they're also not out of it. I mean, you got.
What do you mean they're not out of it? The Blackhawks, seriously?
All right, let's see where they are.
Blackhawks are tied with the Wild, 58 points.
The Wild aren't out of it.
They have a better goal differential than the Wild, -10 to -12.
Right. How are we saying the Wild aren't out of it when you're saying the Blackhawks?
No, we said that they're a fringe team, and the Blackhawks are a fringe team too. Both of them are pretty much out of it.
And the Blackhawks have the 11.
Predators have one more point. Are they out of it?
No, because they did play better the last couple of weeks, so they could stay in it.
And the Blackhawks have the $11 million in cap space from Seabrook and DeHaan on LTIR that they can go out and acquire talent at the deadline.
Once they get defensemen, Mike, it doesn't matter. That team's defense. The other day they collapsed again on defense. Like
if they can pick up like maybe a Martinez makes sense there type thing,
I don't think we can do that. They don't need a Corey Crawford of defensemen right now, and that's what Martinez is. They can get somebody better.
I agree. They should try to get somebody better. And
I don't know if they want a rental because I don't know if they want to.
I've heard talks about Ristolainen with them. And
if they did that, they might be able to get back in it.
That's the name I keep hearing with them all year. And, even though it went away for a while, it's still there.
From the Buffalo perspective, trading Ristolainen, and I'm not being totally ridiculous here, Botterill would have to expect to get Kirby Dach. Or
something, maybe not him, but close.
Or DeBrincat or somebody. Because
he got Evan Barrett, and he got a first-round pick, and he got one other prospect, you might be able to work with that.
I think Botterill is managing for his life right now. The way the Steelers have played lately, he cannot make a deal where he gets a prospect and a first-round pick.
No. The other player would be someone like Kubalik. Because Barrett's years away.
Yeah,
and whatever pick.
I know Kubelik's got 20 goals, but it's he's not proven.
You could sell Kubalik to the fan base because at least he has 20 goals.
Sure.
Other than Jack Eichel, who has 20 goals on Buffalo.
Sam Reinhart, who is close, but he won't talk to the media.
Right, but nobody has 20 goals right now in Buffalo, Mike. That's
no. And Joe in the chat, I'm not saying that Chicago is going to trade Kirby Dodge for Ristolainen.
No, and they probably won't.
But that's what for a top 4 defenseman who's physical, who's right-handed, who's under control. Right. They're going to expect a package greater than what Pittsburgh gave up for Zucker because defensemen are more valuable right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
you got a text message from an Edmonton player
yes,
challenging you, Mike, to this thing, saying that you take that 6 points out of a playoff spot when Connor McDavid returns. So this guy wants you to know that he did by the way sign a deal maybe, but or not. But he wants to know 6 points back. 6 points back, Mike. Want to take that bet?
Tell Zach Cassian I'll drop the gloves with him anytime. If it comes
Zach Cassian.
All right, I'm going to do this, Zach. If the Edmonton Oilers don't make the playoffs, this player has to wear a Dallas Cowboys jersey.
Well, no. Ask
him if he's willing to do that.
Let's say this, Ross.
Okay.
If the Edmonton Oilers miss the playoffs, in 2 years he will be wearing a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey.
Yeah. First of all, he said that there's a little delay, I think, so I'm not getting anything back from him yet.
Okay.
But I will. Oh no. Okay, hold on. I got the 3 dots. Sorry, I got the 3 dots going.
Right. That's funny.
Dallas too. That's my response. Dallas too. I don't think he exists.
And I will say this: and if the Oilers do make the playoffs, then I'll wear a Donovan McNabb Eagles jersey.
Oh.
And Mike will wear a Shea Weber jersey from the Montreal Canadiens.
There you go.
No.
If the Oilers make the playoffs, I will send Mike a Guy Carno jersey to wear on the air.
I'll wear a McNabb jersey all show. But otherwise,
I don't know. He says you don't know who I am.
This guy has to wear a Tony Romo jersey. If
we'll work on the details here.
They don't make it.
But the end of the bottom line here is I think that I agree with this lovely man who's nice enough to send me something that 6 points out, like a 10-point swing, being 4 points in now and 6 points out is in 2 weeks. It's a massive thing. That's massively counting for somebody below, a couple teams below, to get really hot. First of all, that's the other thing that has to happen. I mean, Edmonton could go 500 and unless somebody else gets really hot, they're not going to pass them.
All they need is one team to get hot. They're 1 point out of they're 1 point from falling out of the playoffs.
I think this is the biggest thing, and I'm just going to push aside James Neal because we know that he had an amazing start and then it sort of petered out on him.
Yeah, shot.
Connor McDavid, though, for the 20 minutes he's going to play a game, where are you getting those points from?
Yeah.
Where are they coming from?
Yeah.
I think it's
Riley Sheehan.
You can't sit there and say that they're not going to be hurting from not having Connor McDavid in the lineup. Okay, I'm not an idiot, but I'm going to sit there and I'm going to tell you that this is a Dave Tippett team, and Dave Tippett teams are good at rallying in situations like this.
That's true. Tippett's a good coach, and
he will get them to play a different way because McDavid's not in there. They will buy in on that, and you'll see in Edmonton. And then at the end of the day, this could play out that they learn in these next 2 weeks the kind of defense, the way to play defense. This reminds me, remember the Pittsburgh Penguins? Remember way back when Crosby got hurt and the Penguins had to go without him, and it was really important to him. But yet the Penguins learned how to play defense for a couple weeks before the end of the playoffs. Yeah, and then Crosby came back and they continued to play well with Crosby, but they now knew how to play defense too. This could be the case.
And a tip of the cap, I would give the tip of the cap to the mystery guest who just got himself a nice raise. I hope they do make it, but the odds are against them.
But Ak, here you go. I mean, according to Cap Friendly, and this does not take into consideration because they will not put McDavid on LTIR because he was only going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Right now, their cap space is anywhere between 2.6 and 3.5 million for the deadline. That doesn't get you much in this league. It'll get you a good veteran if some team retains 50%. But
yeah, I mean, that's not. I mean, it's all prorated, so you have to look at it that way.
Right, but I'm just saying they don't have a ton. They don't have the flexibility that Colorado has. They don't have a ton of flexibility, and they're not unique in that. There are other teams as well right now that are right up against it and are going to have to basically use a lot of sort of chicanery to open up space, like Toronto.
There's no question. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, I'm not saying it got easier with him getting hurt. I'm not saying, but I think that they're
only going to lose 2 points in the next 7 games too.
I think it's fatal, but we'll see.
I mean, it definitely. Look at guys all right. I mean, Sam Gagner's had a pretty good year for them. He's been pretty strong. But he's a 3.1, expiring contract, UFA to be. If you get the right player that you think is going to take his spot, if you were to say get, Pajot in, and move Gagner out.
Ottawa takes Gagner back in the deal.
But why not? I mean, it's expiring contract. So it's
even if they took Gagner, it would take a lot more.
It's going to take more, but I'm saying this is how Edmonton makes it happen, from their side of things.
Yes.
I mean, they make the draft pick, but they can put Gagner in the deal. And for Ottawa, it's what Pajot's making, the same amount roughly?
3.1, I believe.
Okay, 3.1. Gagner and Pajot.
But for Pajot, they want a first round pick, they want an A prospect, and they probably want either another player or another prospect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Edmonton has that to give, Eck.
Right. They're not giving up Kaylor Yamamoto. Probably Ottawa want Draisaitl.
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think it's that big rest with it. He has an expiring contract. I mean, I don't think
that doesn't matter. He's the best.
I mean, you might have a conditional first round draft pick in there.
Well, no, that's fine. Conditional, but he's the best center on the market.
Yeah. And here is the illustration of how big this is. Leon Draisaitl, 85 points. Connor McDavid, 81 points. The next scorer on the Edmonton Oilers, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 39
Yeah.
points.
No, I mean, Mike,
they have to sign next year, by the way.
Yeah. And this, I mean, there's no – I mean, I wouldn't do it. I actually think Gagner is solid. They should just hold him. But, I'm just saying that, in this whole situation – I think that you can't discount the fact that they're going to play differently without McDavid. And it's going to test them. It's going to and it's Tippett who is very good at that. That's like a Tippett thing. I just think falling down. I don't know. And then Montreal. I'll give you Montreal. Montreal, that's a long shot to make the playoffs. There's no question about it. They're out of it. Like we said, they are going to. I mean, I'm telling you that they are not yet selling. Maybe that changes now that Shea Weber's injury is more serious. I just haven't talked to anybody yet who told me it has changed. So
the key team here, and then we'll get off of this, but the key team here is Arizona, because Arizona is a point behind them, and they're the team that's on the outside looking in right now.
Yeah.
If you look at their schedule upcoming, they play Toronto tonight. They play at Ottawa, Washington, the Islanders, Dallas, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Florida. Not an easy schedule, but if they go 500 there and Edmonton doesn't go 500, they gain points there, and they're going. So it's a head-to-head matchup between Edmonton and Arizona for that wild card spot.
Right.
Yeah, but hold on a second. I know what you're saying.
Calgary is tied with them. So is Vegas. I mean, this is an opportunity for those two teams to move ahead of Edmonton, which limits Edmonton to the wild card because those two teams would move into second and third in the Pacific.
But the wild card teams: Calgary is 64 points,
Winnipeg
63 points, Arizona. So I mean, you still have those other. I mean, they follow the playoffs with. But they could not.
Winnipeg has a very good goalie in Hellebuck, and they're going to free up cap space with the Buffalo situation. I'm pretty sure they're making the playoffs.
And the only advantage Edmonton has right now is that they have 2 games in hand on most of these teams.
Yeah, they do. They had 3 games in hand on Arizona.
3 on Arizona, but that's 3 games without McDavid.
All right, yeah, but that's not. They're not going to lose all 7 games without McDavid. So if they lose,
they're not going to lose all 7.
So we're still saying if we lose 3 of those games without those, that you have a 3-game cushion. So then after that you have 4 games. If you go 1 and 3 in those games, you're basically at 500.
Right.
Which will keep you close.
This will be fodder for our deadline show, because at that point McDavid will be on the verge of coming back, and we'll see where these teams are.
And we don't know when Neil's going to be back.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Seth Jones too.
We covered the injuries.
I don't know about Neil yet. Exactly, I'm not sure where that is yet.
Do we have any more? Do we have any
other rumors? Let's other big rumors. Let's do that. Let me bring up my notes for that. Because it was interesting today. I was really like thanking. I wanted to thank Rutherford. I didn't talk to him, but I tried to pass the message through to somebody else to thank him for getting this thing going, because it's been a very slow rumor year. But this definitely got it going today. A couple things. So I mentioned Brendan Dillon and the Penguins. That's possible.
I can see it.
The Penguins are really, the Bruins are also talking to Brendan Dillon. I was kind of more expecting the Bruins to go for a forward, but I mean, I guess
I think they still will.
I think they will too. Wayne Simmons' name came up today. Not for the first time, but the first time I put him on the rumor chart. And that's because I'm hearing a lot about Vancouver being in.
Yeah, they have interest.
Yeah, and
it's all tied to the questionable availability of Michael Furland, who basically hasn't been available for a while.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, he's supposed to skate, I think, in the next week or so we'll know more about the deadline. I
think Eck liked that contract, and I didn't, but I don't remember exactly what your stance was, Eck, but I hated that contract.
No, I wasn't into that contract.
Oh, you weren't either. Okay.
No, I thought, and last year when Furland was a big trade deadline guy last year, and I kept saying this guy's being way overrated for what he is.
Okay, so you said the same thing. We all said that was a bad contract then.
Yeah,
I thought it was a bad contract, but I said I understood it because of the.
Oh, you were the one. Okay.
No, I said because of he's a physical forward.
No, you were the one on the panel. I knew somebody on the panel.
Yeah. No, and physical is important for sure, but
he has
injury really crushed, and it really was a big deal. And Vancouver, I mean, is doing well despite it. Obviously, they're in first place.
You know how many goals he has for Vancouver? Eck? He has 1 goal.
He has 1 goal. I know, that's horrible. Wayne Simmons, Dallas, and Edmonton also on the Wayne Simmons train a little bit, but not nearly as much as Vancouver. Pajot, we talked about a little bit, but definitely the Oilers are the team that's looking at him. No question about it. And Calgary. So we have a little bit of like an interesting battle of Alberta going on there with Pajot, which could be fun. But I also think that this could be where Columbus turns, because if Columbus needs to get some more offense going. Wow.
And Anna's real name is Mrs. Bigglesworth.
I do not agree with your Edmonton picks, Mike. So this is where Columbus could go as well. Like Columbus could definitely look towards Pajot. I think I could see that. This is the kind of player that
the problem there is that Ottawa is probably looking for draft picks. Does Columbus have a prospect not in the NHL right now that would be able to?
Actually, yes, they do. Columbus has some serious prospects. I mean, that's just from talking to people. They always mention Columbus has serious prospects. I don't know. Like Russ would know, but
I'll look them up. Hold on.
Actual.
Yeah, I'm just like
I only have like 3 hours sleep, so I'm gonna.
It would have to be a prospect equivalent to a first-round pick, and I don't know whether Columbus is is Bemstrom equal to a first-round pick?
No, not yet, but because he's having a mediocre year right now, but he's going to be a good player. There's no question.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ottawa's, if they don't get future for Pajot, and they got a lot of future players and draft picks now, then they want somebody who can step into their lineup. And I don't know if Columbus, that makes no sense for Columbus.
All right, so
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say with Columbus, Liam Foudy is equal to a first-round pick. He was an 18th overall. He's got tremendous speed. He's a big-time goal scorer in juniors right now. Like right now,
and they just called him up on an emergency
basis, and he has 43 points in 32 games for London. I just watched him play. So that is a guy that, yes, he is equal. And maybe that's why, well, the emergency thing wasn't why they called him up, because they did have an injury, but it does help them that teams got to look at him. So, so he is the one that could definitely pull that.
But after trading everything they traded last year, are they going to go down that road again?
Well, they still have guys, Mike. Like Andrew Peak is a heck of a defenseman. He's up there now with them. I mean, that's the guy.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, they've got a lot of young players playing for them.
21 years old, and he is a really good defenseman. He's just getting his feet wet right now.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, they're that Cleveland Monsters team that won it all a couple years ago, and like raced through the playoffs. A lot of those guys are on this team.
I mean, Texier maybe. I mean,
Texier is the other one. He is another one that is a very enticing guy because, like, this is a guy from France of all places. This is where Yarmul really did something special, and he has 13 points, but he's just really getting used to the league.
Yeah.
So Texier, if you get Texier in a deal, that's a lot of skill there.
And these are the players why they didn't have issues trading away first round draft picks last.
Right.
Because they know they have these guys who are even closer to the NHL, but in that then a first round draft pick would have been that they had taken in the last draft. That they're going to be they don't tend to make bad trades, and Yarmo's been really good at this kind of stuff. So I still think that when you look at what they did, okay, obviously Panarin they would have loved to have kept, no questions asked, but they weren't going to be able to keep him. I mean, they did with Bob to Elvis. No one has really flinched. I'm not saying anything against Bob. I mean,
right now, no, it is something against Bob. Bob is having a crap year.
Yeah, no, he's having a crap year right now for sure. But
and Elvis is on an entry level contract. He's
I mean, they knew that. I mean, this is why they weren't going crazy trying to get Bobrovsky.
Elvis is worth his weight in banana and peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah, no, he's fun to have in the league.
But the thing is, and this shouldn't be a problem for them because they have the cap space. He signed a 1-year deal. He's an RFA next year. It's not arbitration.
No, he's getting paid.
He's getting paid, so he's getting.
Oh, no question about it. I'm not. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he gets paid sooner.
And if they're smart, they try to stay. If they're convinced that he's as good as he's played this year, then they have to sign him for 4 or 5 years at least.
Very soon, and I think that they knew this last year as well. They knew this. They knew they really had. I mean, no one knows until a guy plays in the NHL, but they felt really strongly enough about him that Bob wasn't really scaring them at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. But that's when I think that could possibly happen. I don't know. There's a bunch of possibilities here. So the other one, the Kreider and Vatanen are the other two that I've been looking at today mostly. And I will say that they are, they're both New Jersey and the Rangers want to get these guys back with them. And as for now, that's where it's at. That could change. With all these players going out, it's going to be the Rangers are definitely going to be tempted. Someone's going to throw a major offer at them for Kreider.
Well, they'll be more than tempted. If Kreider doesn't come up with this contract soon, he's going to get dealt. It's that simple.
Yeah,
I think so too. But they're working on it. I think the chances of them actually getting it done are better than 50-50.
I don't disagree with that, but there is going to be a drop dead point where they say, okay, you know what? We aren't getting anywhere. Now we have to trade you. So they have to get it done soon.
Yeah, you might be right there. There definitely has to be a drop dead point. That I've been trying to find out when that is with Vatanen too, like with Vatanen as well, because I think Vatanen's in the same kind of boat there.
Well, but the inside info that I got on the Vatanen part is it's if Josh Harris wants to trade him, because like you said first, they were going to try and sign him. I did get someone to say that is possible. But again, when? There's 2 weeks left.
Well, I've heard that there's a lot of different opinions there between ownership and Fitzgerald too. So
there's no question about that.
And that I think is at the head of the issue here, because you're not going to let a general manager who's an interim trade guys like Wood and Coleman and Subban or any all these guys have term left. Because that'll have either you give him the job or you fire him now. If like right now all he's allowed to do is trade the rentals, then fine, then he's limited to that. But I don't think they're going to trade guys that have term left in their contracts. They're going to let an interim general manager do that because that affects the bottom line 2 or 3 years from now.
Right.
Yeah, and they really thought they had a great off season too, and I think that there's a lot of that going on in New Jersey where they thought a lot of people, me included, said that they kind of won the off season. They made some really interesting plays. They got lucky, of course, with the Hughes, but they got the number 1 pick overall, and
They did.
You know, and they added that Russian, everything looked like it was
But
coming up.
but now they're at a crossroads. They're
definitely at a crossroads, and they're way earlier than they wanted to be, you know. So that's to me, that's where the confusion comes from. You know, what do we really believe in here? Like, what's actually happening?
Right.
And I don't think that anyone's 100% sure of it right now. So let's do this. Tankathon.com.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So our friends at Tankathon.com, we like to thank them as always for
Come on, big money.
the use of their draft lottery simulator. And here we go. We're going to simulate the lottery now. And it's the New Jersey Devils. Speaking of lucky,
3 picks, 3 number 1 overall picks in 4 years.
They are like the Edmonton Oilers of the East.
If all of a sudden the Devils have a line of Hughes and Lafreniere next year, things are looking up.
Things are looking up,
but much more likable.
And all we need, and you know what all the other people are saying, Russ, is all the Metro needs is another powerhouse. You know, like
I know, right? If they get another first overall pick in the Metro, that's a great point.
I mean, you know, the Rangers aren't that far away, and they've got some great players coming too. It's like, right. I mean, this, you know, how many there's only 5 teams that can make it from this. There's going to be a team, and it was somebody said in the chat room, and somebody said yesterday too. I saw the broadcast that I was watching last night that there's going to be a team in the Metro that has 100 points that doesn't make the playoffs this year. And
we said the other day, I think 98, 100 is not impossible.
Yeah, 100 is not impossible, which is crazy. And you know, they just are this division, and that's, you know, with New Jersey and the Rangers not being good particularly.
Right.
So I mean, if New Jersey gets Lafreniere, I mean, look at this. This division just gets insane. You know, even more so than it is already. So this is a tough division. This is going to be really tough. And this is the kind of division that like makes the NHL change playoff formats too, because you've got some serious powerhouse teams in there and owners that won't be happy if their team in 100 points not making the playoffs.
They won't do it when a team like Toronto complains about having to play Boston every year, but they'll do it because of the Metro.
Yeah. No, they'll do it if they're not not as long as you make the playoffs, they're okay. If teams are getting 100 points and not making the playoffs, and then teams in the, you know, other teams out west even or whatever are getting 90 points and making the playoffs, that's when they're gonna have issues. You'll see that.
All right,
out of here. We got to go to. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you as always, guys. We will be back tomorrow, and remember, always remember.